Hi, I'm here to read Chapter 3, A Visitor. Our new book, The Trumpet of the Swan, is awesome, and this chapter gets us going. One day, almost a week later, the swan slipped quietly into her nest and laid an egg. Each day, she tried to deposit one egg in the nest. Sometimes she succeeded, sometimes she didn't. There were now 3 eggs, and she was ready to lay a 4th. As she sat there with her husband, the cob, floating gracefully nearby, she had a strange feeling that she was being watched. It made her uneasy. Birds don't like to be stared at. They particularly dislike being stared at when they are on a nest. So the swan twisted and turned and peered everywhere. She gazed intently at the point on the land that jutted into the pond near the nest. With her sharp eyes, she searched nearby shores for signs of an intruder. What she finally saw gave her the surprise. Seated on a log on the point of the land was a small boy. He was being very quiet, and he had no gun. Whew. Do you see what I see with my husband? No, what? Over there on a log, it's a boy. Now, what are we going to do? How do we get with the cob? We are deep in the wilds of Canada. There are no human beings for miles around. That's what I thought, she replied. But if that isn't a boy over there on a log, my name isn't Cygnus Buccinator. The cob was furious. I didn't fly all the way to north into Canada to get involved with a boy. He said we came here to this idyllic spot, this remote little hideaway, so we could enjoy some well-deserved privacy. Well, said his wife, I'm sorry to see the boy too, but I must say he's behaving himself. He sees us, but he's not throwing stones. He's not messing around. He's simply observing. I do not wish to be observed, complained the cob. I did not travel all this immense distance into the heart of Canada to be observed. Furthermore, I don't want you to be observed, except by me. You're laying an egg. That is, I hope you are, and you are entitled to privacy. But it has been my experience that all boys throw stones and sticks. It's their nature. I'm going over there and strike that boy with my powerful wing, and he'll think he'll think he has been hit with a billy club. I'll knock him out cold. Now, just wait a minute, warned the swan. There's no use in starting a fight. The boy's not bothering me at the moment, and he's not bothering you either. But how did he get there, said the cob, who was no longer talking in a whisper, but now is beginning to shout. How did he get here? Boys can't fly, and there are no roads in this part of Canada. We're 50 miles from the nearest highway. Maybe he's lost, said the swan. Maybe he's starving to death. Maybe he wants to rob the nest and eat the eggs, but I doubt it. He doesn't look hungry. Anyway, I've started this nest, and I have beautiful eggs. And the boy's behaving himself at the moment, and I intend to go right on ahead and have a 4th egg. Good luck, my love, said the cob. I shall be at your side, here to defend you if anything happens. Lay the egg. For the next hour, the cob paddled slowly around and around the island, keeping watch. His wife remained quietly on the nest. Sam, on his log, hardly moving a muscle. He was spellbound at the sight of the swans. They were the biggest water birds he had ever seen, and he had heard their trumpeting and searched the woods and swamps until he had found the pond and located the nest. Sam knew enough about birds to know that these were trumpeters. Sam always felt happy when he was in a wild place among wild creatures. Sitting on a log watching the swans, he had the same good feeling some people get when they're sitting in church. After he had watched for an hour, Sam got up and he walked slowly and quietly away, putting one foot straight ahead the other, Indian fashion, hardly making a sound. The swans watched him go, and when the female left the nest, she turned and looked back. There, lying safely in the soft feathers at the bottom of the nest, was the 4th egg. The cob waddled into the island and looked at the nest. A masterpiece, he said. An egg of supreme beauty and perfect proportions. I would say that egg is almost 5 inches in length. His wife was pleased. When the swan had laid 5 eggs, she felt satisfied. She gazed at them proudly and then settled herself on the nest to keep the eggs warm. Carefully, she reached down with her bill and poked each egg until it was just in the right spot to receive the heat from her body. The cob cruised around close by to keep her company and protect her from enemies. He knew the fox had prowled somewhere in the woods, and he heard him barking on nights when the hunting was good. Days passed, and still the warm swan sat quietly on her 5 eggs. Nights passed, and she sat and sat, giving warmth to the eggs. No one disturbed her. The boy was gone. Perhaps he would never come back. Inside of each egg, something was happening that she couldn't see. A little swan was taking shape. As the weeks went by, the days grew longer and the nights grew shorter. When a rainy day came, the swan just sat there and let it rain. "My dear," said the husband, the cob, one afternoon, "do you never find your duties onerous and irksome? Do you never tire of sitting in one place in one position, covering the eggs with no diversions, no pleasures, no escapades or capers? Do you never suffer from boredom?" "No," replied the wife, "not really." "Isn't it uncomfortable to sit on the eggs?" "Yes, it is," replied the wife, "but I can put up with a certain amount of discomfort for the sake of bringing young swans into the world." "Do you know how many more days you must sit?" he asked. "Haven't any idea," she said, "but I noticed that the ducks at the other end of the pond have hatched their young ones, and I noticed the red-winged blackbirds have hatched theirs, and the other evening I saw a striped skunk hunting along the shore, and she had 4 little skunks with her. So I think I must be getting near the end of my time. With any luck, we will soon be able to see our children, our beautiful little cygnets." "Do you ever feel the pangs of hunger or suffer from the tortures of thirst?" asked the cob. Yes, said his mate. "As a matter of fact, I can get a drink right now." The afternoon was warm and the sun was bright, and the swan decided she could leave her eggs for a few minutes. So she stood up. First, she pushed loose feathers around the eggs, hiding from me and giving them warm covering in her absence. And then she stepped off the nest and entered the water. She took several drinks, and then she glided over a shallow place, thrust her head under water, and pulled up tender greens from the bottom. She next took a bath by tossing water over herself. She waddled out into the grassy bank and stood there, preening her feathers. This is a picture. The swan felt good. She had no idea the enemy was near. She failed to notice the red fox as he watched her from his hiding place behind a big clump of bushes. The fox had been attracted to the pond by the sound of splashing water. He hoped he would find a goose. Now he sniffed the air. Her back was turned, so he began creeping slowly toward her. She would be too big for him to carry, but he decided he would kill her anyway and get the taste of blood. And the cob and her husband was still floating on the pond. He spied the fox first. "Look," he trumpeted, "look out for the fox, who is creeping toward you even as I speak. His eyes bright, his bushy tail out straight, his mind lusting for blood, his belly almost touching the ground. You are in grave danger, and we must act immediately." While the cob was making this elegant speech of warning, something happened, something that surprised everybody. Just as the fox was about to spring and sink his teeth into the swan's neck, a stick came hurtling out of the air. It struck the fox full on the nose, and he turned and ran away. The 2 swans couldn't imagine what had happened. They noticed a movement in the bushes. Out stepped Sam Beaver, the boy who had visited him a month ago. Sam was grinning. In his hand he held another stick in case that fox should return. But the fox was in no mood to return. He had a very sore nose, and he had lost his appetite for fresh swan. "Hello," said Sam in a low voice. "Cuckoo! Cuckoo!" replied the cob. "Coo-hoo," said his wife. The pond rang with the trumpet sounds, sounds of trumpet triumph over the fox, sounds of victory and gladness. Sam was thrilled at the noises of the swan, which some people say is like the sound of a French horn. He walked slowly around the shore to the little point of land near the island and sat down on his log. The swans now realized beyond any doubt that the boy was their friend. He had saved the swan's life. He had been in the right place at the right time with the right ammunition. The swans felt grateful. The cob swam over to Sam, climbed out of the pond, and stood close to the boy, looking at him in a friendly way and arching his neck gracefully. Once he ran his neck far out cautiously and almost touched the boy. Sam never moved a muscle. His heart thumped from the excitement and the joy. The female paddled back into her nest and returned to the job of warming the eggs. She felt lucky to be alive. That night, before Sam crawled into his bunk at camp, he got out his notebook and he found a special pencil, and this is what he wrote. I don't know of anything in the entire world more wonderful to look at than a nest with eggs in it. If an egg, because it contains life, is the most perfect thing there is. It is beautiful and mysterious. An egg is a far finer thing than a tennis ball or a cake of soap. A tennis ball will always be a tennis ball, and a cake of soap will always be a cake of soap, until it gets so small nobody wants it, and then they throw it away. But an egg will someday be a living creature. A swan's egg will open up, and will come out will come a little swan. A nest is almost as wonderful and as mysterious as an egg. How does a bird know how to make a nest? Nobody ever taught her. How does a bird know how to build a nest? Sam closed his notebook and said good night to his father and blew out his lamp and climbed into his bunk. He lay there wondering how a bird knows how to build a nest. Pretty soon his eyes closed and he was asleep. I love Sam has questions. Do you have questions? Write them in your journal. Look them up. It's so interesting to think about nature. Thank you for listening.